You're exhausted, not a little tired, genuinely bone deep exhausted. The kind where you can barely keep your eyes open on the couch, where your body feels like it's being pulled down by something heavy and invisible. You've been waiting for this moment all day, and then you get into bed and nothing happens. Worse than nothing. Your brain, the same brain that was practically shutting down 10 minutes ago, suddenly has opinions about tomorrow, about that thing you said 3 years ago, about whether you locked the front door, about everything except sleep. Sound familiar? If it does, you're not imagining it. You're not just a worrier. You're not broken. What's happening to you has a name, a mechanism, and this is the part most people never hear, a very specific explanation that has nothing to do with stress, screens, or how much coffee you had. It has to do with what your brain has learned about your bed. Because here's the thing nobody tells you: your brain doesn't experience your bed the way you think it does. You see a mattress, pillows, a place to rest. Your brain sees something else entirely. And over time, slowly, invisibly, one sleepless night at a time, it may have learned the wrong lesson about what that place means. This video is about how that happens, why it happens, and what it means for anyone who's ever felt that maddening, exhausting paradox of being tired everywhere except the one place they're supposed to sleep. Let's start with a dog. In the 1890s, a Russian physiologist named Ivan Pavlov was studying digestion in dogs. He noticed something strange. His dog started salivating not just when food appeared, but when the lab assistant walked into the room, before any food. Just the person, just the footsteps. Pavlov realized the dogs had made a connection. Footsteps had appeared alongside food enough times that the brain had fused them together. The footsteps became a signal, a trigger. The body responded to the signal as if the food were already there. He called this a conditioned reflex. Now forget the dogs for a second, because the exact same mechanism is running inside every human brain, every single night, in bedrooms all over the world. Here's how it works in your bedroom. The first time you had a bad night's sleep, lying awake, staring at the ceiling, mind racing, your brain was in that bed. The second time it happened, your brain was in that bed again, and again, and again. Every single time your arousal system fired up, every time your thoughts raced, every time your body tensed with the frustration of not sleeping, your brain filed a note. Bed, wakefulness, bed, anxiety, bed, frustration, bed, wakefulness. It wasn't trying to hurt you, it was doing exactly what brains do: learning patterns, filing associations, building a map of what each place and signal means. And somewhere along the line, without you ever agreeing to it, without you ever being aware it was happening, your brain rewrote what your bed means. It stopped being a sleep signal, it became a wake signal. And now every time you lie down, your brain doesn't relax, it prepares. This is the part that most sleep advice completely misses. Because the problem isn't in your thoughts, not really. It's not in your stress levels, not fundamentally. The problem is in your nervous system's learned response to a specific physical location: your bedroom, your pillow, the particular darkness of that room. Your brain has tagged all of it. The moment you walk in, something shifts. The moment your head hits the pillow, your arousal system ticks up, not down. And here's where it gets genuinely cruel. Because the harder you try to sleep, the worse it gets. Think about what happens when you try to force sleep. You lie very still, you close your eyes tight, you tell yourself to relax. You watch the clock, you calculate: if I fall asleep right now, I'll still get 5 hours. You feel your chest tighten with the effort of it. None of this is sleep. All of it is effort. And effort is the opposite of sleep. But there's something even more damaging happening underneath all that effort. Every minute you spend lying awake in bed, anxious, frustrated, straining, is another data point your brain is collecting, another pairing, another entry in the file that says bed equals wakefulness. You are, without knowing it, deepening the conditioning. The very act of trying to sleep in the place where you've learned not to sleep is making the association stronger, not weaker. This is why the problem doesn't just plateau. This is why, for many people, it gets worse over time. because every sleepless night spent lying in bed trying is a training session, and you show up for training every single night. Sleep scientists call this conditioned arousal, and researchers like Arthur Spielman and Charles Morin, who spent decades studying chronic insomnia, identified it as one of the primary drivers of why insomnia persists long after the original stressor. The breakup, the job loss, the illness is completely gone. The trigger that caused the first bad nights disappears, but the conditioning remains. Your brain is still in class, still taking notes, still building the association that keeps you awake. So, what exactly is happening inside your nervous system in that moment? What is the brain actually doing when it fires up the moment you get into bed? Your brain has two competing systems running at all times. One is your sleep system. It runs on a chemical called adenosine, a byproduct of being awake. The longer you're awake, the more adenosine builds up, the heavier and sleepier you feel. This is the system that was winning on the couch, the one dragging your eyelids down. The other is your arousal system. It runs on a completely different set of chemicals: norepinephrine, histamine, orexin, and its job is to keep you alert, vigilant, and ready to respond to threats. It's an ancient system. It evolved to keep you alive in dangerous environments where falling asleep in the wrong place could get you killed. Here's the critical thing: your arousal system does not care that you are tired. It cares about signals, it cares about what your environment means. And if your brain has learned, through weeks or months of repeated association, that your bedroom is a place where wakefulness happens, your arousal system will respond to that room the way it responds to any threat signal. It will activate, not gently, not partially. It will wake you up from the inside. Cortisol ticks up, heart rate subtly rises, muscle tension increases, thoughts accelerate. All of this happens before you've even consciously decided to try to sleep. Your body is already fighting you before the fight begins. And here's the thing about the arousal system: it is extraordinarily good at its job. It was built to keep early humans alive in environments where threats were real and immediate. A snapped twig in the dark, a shift in the wind. It had to be sensitive, it had to be fast, it had to be hard to override. That same sensitivity, that same speed, that same stubborn persistence is now pointed directly at your mattress. And there's a term for how this gets measured. Sleep researchers use something called sleep efficiency, a simple ratio that tells you how much of your time in bed is actually spent sleeping. You take the hours you slept, divide by the hours you spent in bed, and multiply by 100. A healthy sleeper sits somewhere above 85%. They get into bed, they fall asleep relatively quickly, they stay asleep, they wake up. But here's what happens when conditioned arousal takes hold. You start going to bed earlier, hoping more time in bed means more sleep. You lie awake longer before falling asleep. You wake in the night and lie there for an hour before sleep returns. Your sleep efficiency drops, maybe to 70%, 60% lower. And every single hour you spend lying awake in that bed is doing two things simultaneously. First, it's reducing your sleep efficiency further. Second, it's deepening the conditioning. More data for your brain's association file, more pairings, more evidence that this place, this specific mattress, these specific walls mean wakefulness. The brain is not being irrational. It is being exactly as rational as it always is. It is doing what it does with every stimulus it encounters repeatedly. It is learning. It is predicting. It is trying to prepare you for what it expects to happen next. It expects wakefulness, so it delivers wakefulness. And this is where the standard advice falls apart completely. Just relax. Try not to think. Have a warm bath. Drink chamomile tea. None of these touch the actual problem, because the actual problem isn't your thoughts right now, in this moment. The actual problem is a trained reflex that exists in your nervous system, independent of your conscious intention, independent of how calm you feel, independent of how much chamomile tea you've consumed. You cannot think your way out of a conditioned reflex. You can only retrain it. And this is where the science gets genuinely hopeful, because the same mechanism that built this problem, conditioning, is the same mechanism that can dismantle it. The brain that learned the wrong association can learn the right one. Not overnight, not painlessly, but with a clear, specific protocol that sleep researchers have been refining for decades. That protocol is called stimulus control, and it is the most evidence backed behavioral intervention for chronic insomnia that exists. If you want the full version of this, the actual step by step rules, the specific logic behind each one, and a 7-day plan that walks you through the reconditioning process, that's exactly what the Insomnia Reset was built for. It's the God of Sleep guide that takes the stimulus control research and turns it into something you can actually use tonight. There's a whole pillar in it called Protect Your Bed, two specific rules that directly address the conditioning loop we've just been talking about. And it includes the sleep efficiency formula with a tracking system so you can watch the reconditioning actually working in real numbers, night by night. The link is in the description. But let's talk about what the reconditioning actually looks like, because understanding the logic is what makes it possible to follow through. The core principle is this: your brain built the wrong association by experiencing bed and wakefulness together repeatedly. To break that association, you have to stop providing those repeated pairings. And to build the right association, you have to start providing new ones, bed and sleep, together repeatedly until the brain rewrites its prediction. This sounds simple. In practice, it requires doing something that feels deeply counterintuitive. You have to spend less time in bed, not permanently, not drastically, but deliberately. If you are lying awake in bed for 2 hours every night, those 2 hours are not rest. They are training. They are conditioning your brain further in the wrong direction. The protocol says if you are not asleep or close to sleep, you should not be in bed. Not because the bed is punishing you, because your brain needs to stop receiving the signal that bed equals wakefulness. You get out, you go somewhere calm, dim, unstimulating. You do something quiet. And when sleepiness, real sleepiness, not just tiredness, returns, you go back. Every time you do this, you are refusing to add another data point to the wrong file. Every time sleep happens in the bed, and only in the bed, you are adding a data point to the right file. And slowly, not in one night, not in three, but over days and weeks, the brain's prediction starts to shift. The bed stops being a trigger for wakefulness. It starts being a trigger for sleep again. This is not willpower. This is not positive thinking. This is neuroscience. This is how conditioned responses are broken, not by deciding to feel differently, but by systematically changing the inputs the brain receives until its prediction changes. The arousal system, which was firing the moment you walked into your bedroom, starts to quiet. Not because you told it to, because it no longer has the evidence it needs to justify firing. You have, over time, rewritten what your bedroom means, and something remarkable happens as that rewriting takes hold. You start to feel it before you even consciously register it. You walk into your bedroom, and instead of that subtle tightening in the chest, that low hum of dread or vigilance, there's something else: a pull, a heaviness, the same feeling you used to get only on the couch or on holiday or in some other bed in some other place where your brain hadn't yet learned to be awake. Drowsiness, real drowsiness, in your own bed, in your own room. It sounds small, it isn't. It means the conditioning has shifted. It means your brain has updated its prediction. It means you've changed at the level of reflex and nervous system what sleep means for you and where it happens. So let's go back to where we started. You're exhausted. You get into bed and your brain lights up. You now know why. It's not a character flaw. It's not anxiety disorder. It's not some mysterious broken switch inside you that nobody can find or fix. It is a learned response, a conditioned reflex, built slowly, invisibly, one sleepless night at a time, by a brain that was doing exactly what brains are supposed to do: learning, predicting, preparing. It learned the wrong thing, that's all. And here's what that means: the story isn't over, because learned things can be unlearned. Predictions can be updated, reflexes can be retrained. The same brain that built this problem has everything it needs to dismantle it, given the right inputs, the right structure, and enough consistent repetition in the right direction. Your bed is not broken, the association is broken, and associations are not permanent. There's a chapter in the Insomnia Reset called Sleep Myths Busted, and one of the myths it dismantles is exactly this one: the idea that if you've been struggling to sleep for months or years, something must be fundamentally wrong with you, that you're just a bad sleeper, that some people can do it and some people can't. That myth is wrong, and understanding the conditioning mechanism, really understanding it the way you do now, is the first reason to stop believing it. The second reason is this: the protocol works. Stimulus control, the sleep efficiency framework, the protect your bed rules, these aren't experimental. They are the most studied, most replicated behavioral interventions in sleep science. They work because they work with the brain's own learning system, not against it. You are not fighting your brain, you are teaching it. And the thing about teaching, it takes repetition, patience, and a clear plan. Not perfection, not willpower, just consistency applied in the right direction for long enough that the brain's prediction changes. Tonight, when you get into bed, your brain will do what it has learned to do. It may fire up, it may start scanning, it may offer you every thought you've been avoiding all day. That's okay. That's the old prediction running. It doesn't mean the reconditioning isn't working. It means the work isn't done yet. But now you know what the work actually is. You know what the mechanism is. You know what you're retraining and why each step of the protocol exists. That knowledge changes everything. Not because understanding fixes insomnia on its own, it doesn't. But because when you know what you're doing and why, you can follow through. You can hold the line on the hard nights. You can trust the process when it feels slow. If you want the full structure, the complete 7-day plan, the protect your bed rules laid out step by step, the sleep efficiency tracker, and the one-page cheat sheet you can keep on your nightstand, the Insomnia Reset has all of it. It's warm, it's specific, it's built on the same science we've been talking about today, and it's designed to be used by real people on real nights when sleep feels impossible. The link is in the description. Your brain learned this. Your brain can unlearn it. And that, honestly, is the most important thing to take to bed with you tonight.